I'm hoping that our guest is going to come on in a moment. He's just sorting his 4G or 5G out, but he should be joining us. Fingers crossed. That might be somebody knocking at the door. Oh. God, we've got full everybody. So first, quick introductions. What did you say, Eric? How would you introduce your hat?
Yeah. What phrase would you say that your hat summed up? What phrase would you
use to introduce your hat? So I'll go first.
Right.
It's madness.
It's madness. Madness. They call it madness. Yes, of course. Very good.
Adam.
Yeah, mine. It's having a good day. One might even say good day.
Good day, Menley Beach.
Indeed.
Eric.
I would say this is a family business. My name's Tommy Shelby.
by order of Eric Doyle.
By order of the Peaky Bloody Blinders, isn't it?
Rob.
I would say eternal hope.
Love it.
Linwood.
My hat is practical. We have a winter storm on its way. We're gonna have a blizzard on the East Coast.
Oh, right. No. You got masses of snow coming down. I've seen that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Nick.
Jolly, for obvious reasons. It's the only one I could find. There we go.
Will I am.
Afternoon by the river.
Yeah.
Lovely day. Cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah, a few pims as well.
Lovely.
It's seen a bit of action.
Brentley.
This is my vacation hat.
Oh, fantastic. And James, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, well, I'm the hat guy. My Twitter,
you are.
You caused this.
Twitter handle famously says likes hats and hates PowerPoint. And this one's actually a Kubra hat from Australia. So Adam, you were just there. You said so. Hats are not a joking business. They are serious business.
They are serious, especially when you get nothing underneath them to keep your head warm.
I did notice on the invites, there's a lot of us baldies on this show. That's for sure.
I don't know what you mean.
So
anyway,
James, I know that you've only got 10 or so minutes because you're supposed to be on another call, but you come on here as a favour for us. So I'm going to actually cut everything that we would normally do and just go straight to you, which is to talk about storytelling.
Right. So I start with the trivia question, which I posted on LinkedIn this morning, which is I'm going to start with a line from the 1980s band The Police. What would be your favourite go-to line from The Police?
For me, Message in a Bottle.
Yeah, Message in a Bottle on the red light.
Oh, Roxanne, absolutely. That's a good one, yeah.
Every breath you take, I'll be watching you.
Oh, no.
Every little thing she does is magic.
Yeah. No one's gone for the COVID anthem of "Please don't stand so close to me."
You took it.
But anyway, the line I wanted to use is: poets, priests, and politicians have words to thank for their positions. Right? So let's think about that for a minute. So the interesting thing about these professions is that they use words, but specifically, they're masters of metaphor, which is saying one thing to explain another. So I've found over my time here at SAP that this skill of being able to explain one thing in terms of another is really critical in the digital world. I mean, I work for SAP, yay, and we sell digital solutions. They're intangible, right? And the best way to explain something unfamiliar is in the context of something familiar. So I included politicians in that list because in honor of the great Professor Jonathan Van Tam's colorful metaphors, which, of course, turned him into a bit of a household name for his use of metaphors. And some even became memes. His quote is, "I love metaphors. I think they bring complex stories to life for people." And I put priests on that list because ministers have to explain deep truths, and they don't use PowerPoint either. So metaphor or analogy or parable, as it's called in the Bible, that's the main communication for preachers. I mean, Jesus himself used metaphor. I am the bread of life. The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. And when someone asked him, so who is my neighbor? Rather than answering the question, he told a story. In fact, told a story of an analogy, famously the story of the Good Samaritan. And this is one of the first observation is when people ask you a question, quite often the best answer is not the answer. It's tell a story. And specifically tell a story in terms of an analogy or a metaphor, as is an example of the Good Samaritan. And so I really think the use of metaphors are in two ways. So one is to explain things, as Jonathan Van Tam did to explain COVID in terms of a football match, going to penalties and all that stuff, or to persuade people by bringing emotion into the conversation. But there's more to this than just good. We need good metaphors, and so a lot of here deal in the digital world, and we talk about disconnected business processes as being siloed. Who's heard that term? Yeah, siloed business process.
Sure,
it's a terrible metaphor. I mean, first of all, it's a stupid word. There is no word siloed. I once had to work with a simultaneous translation and tried to explain what it was, and they were like, "Well, it's not a word." Yeah, I know, it's not a word. Anyway. It's not a good metaphor either, because if we think about grain in silos, it doesn't move from silo 1 to silo 2 to silo 3. That's not how silos work. So think about silo metaphors, not a good one. Don't get me started on cloud, also not a good metaphor. But it's grey, it's windy, it's out there, it's remote, it blows away in the wind. I don't want to store my data somewhere like that. Anyway,
I love when people say it's in the cloud and look up to the sky.
Well, in England, you're 100% right in that respect. It's always cloudy here. As my American wife said, it's like living inside Tupperware. So anyway, my first coaching point here is take time to develop analogies and take time to tell them properly. Don't rush it, because if you do a presentation and you want to start off with an analogy, then oftentimes that may be the best part of your presentation. So don't cut down on that as being, okay, that's just the warm-up act. It's actually not the warm-up act. It's probably the most important thing you're going to say all day. So let me give you an example. Tim asked me to share a couple with you. So first of all, hold things up to the camera. So this here is a ticket from the Rio Olympics, specifically from the 4x100 meters relay race, which I went to the final of that. So Usain Bolt and his Jamaican team won it. But interestingly enough, the team that came second, the silver medal, was the Japanese relay team. Okay, so name a famous Japanese sprinter. Exactly. They don't have any. Right? No one qualified for the final. I mean, so how did they get the silver medal? I mean, that's because they focused on the fact that you don't necessarily need the 4 fastest runners. You need to focus on the interchange between the runners. So focusing on the space between them. That was the first observation. Secondly is they trained the runners specifically in relay running, which is actually quite different from regular sprinting. The regular sprint, you start with blocks. When the gun goes, you run like crazy, you dive for the line, and you run in a straight line. None of those things are true in a relay race. And so they specifically chose these people and trained them together, and they got the silver medal, beating the Germans, the Brits, other people who were much more fancy and who had said, let's get the 4 fastest runners and stick them together. They'll be fine. They weren't fine. That's not how you win a relay race. And this is a better metaphor for disconnected business processes than those damn silos. Okay, so a business process, so take our business process, say in sales, which has 4 phases: lead generation, sales, billing, and delivery. And the best end-to-end process is when the interchange between those works correctly. You may buy the best lead generation tool and the best billing tool and the best whatever else, but if they don't work together, you're going to be like the Americans who finished 5th, even had the fastest runners. And so that's really a simple example of telling a story with a metaphor behind it. And so finally, I say that metaphor should end with an epigram. And for this, what I say, don't drop the baton. Right? So I'm talking to customers about, I work in supply chain actually, so the metaphor has wide usage, and so the 4 processes are different. Don't drop the baton between the processes. You don't have to have the best process. SAP, we don't claim to be the best at all of them, but we're certainly good at in-between parts, like the Japanese were. So that's an example of an analogy or a metaphor wrapped in a story that transmits what I call a deep truth, which is in end-to-end business processes, it's the interchange that counts, not being best at each one. And so you break down a little bit to how that's constructed. So I usually figure that you need a cue to wake people up. So on Zoom, that works well by waving something in the camera. Okay, there's not much else you can do, quite frankly. I've got hats, or you could do something else. But in a room, you've got more choices. But on a Zoom thing, not too much you can do. You have to give a bit of background. Not everyone understands how relay race works. So a bit about that. Then there's a personal touch. I was there I saw this. I saw the Japanese people with their silver medals, a little Japanese girl next to me waving her flag. And we never win anything like this. And she was so excited. Personal touch. Now, you say, I don't have one of those. Yes, my friends, but you also have stories in your life that you've been to that you could use to tell. So look out for things in the same way that mining your own experiences, the books that you're reading, podcasts you're listening to, sayings that people have said, mind those experiences. So when you tell an analogy, you have your own personal touch. So that's the first thing. I call this mining, which is to find stories. Digital guys, I write them in a moleskin book with a cross pen. I'm old-fashioned. And I come back to them later, sometimes even years later, and say, I know, I've got an idea for that now. So here's another way that I tell that very same story. Right? The good man, Eric. That's good. Not a cross pen, though. I even had stickers. I put little coloured stickers on them, depending on what never mind. So I tell the same deep truth about disconnected business processes with a different analogy. And this one was based on an article I was reading in the Times, actually, by Matthew Syed. You may have read some other things.
Love him.
Yeah, good guy. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Anyway, he wrote this thing a few years ago about something I'd never heard of before. You probably haven't before, which is a rocket in the 1970s called the Europa rocket. So, I never heard of that. So I researched it further. And I thought, you know what? I used to be keen on space in the 1970s. Do you ever remember these? These are Brook Bond T cards. Okay, so
nice to collect them.
5p,
5p or 6D, right? Well, 6D for this is from 1973, where P was new.
So for the Americans, 6D means it's old money before
1971. It's very similar.
Brittany now thinks she's on an edition of the Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah. She thought that before.
When he was talking about the police, I'm like, I don't want to share the one line that I know about the police because it's the Miranda rights. That's all I know.
This is Sting's group. Anyway, so these are they're like cigarette cards in America, right? You get them in the these are tea because we're British with tea. We don't smoke over here. We have tea instead. And you get them, you stick them in a book. Anyway, this is the race into space. Anyway, let's read this rocket, number 41 in my little book here, stuck in. So how does it work? So Britain contributed the Blue Streak, the missile, and French and West Germany built the second and third stages. Italy provided the test satellite, Holland and Belgium the telemetry and the tracking, and it was all launched in Australia. So yes, this Europa rocket in the 1970s, you heard about it? How successful was it? Yeah. Blew up every single time. Okay. So the Saturn V, built by Americans, in Americans, with the same kind of people throughout, top to bottom, all integrated, all tested, launched 14 successful. Europa never got off the launch pad. So why not? Let's go back, because it's all different bits, and they didn't work together. So it hadn't been tested properly, didn't fit. So same story, right? Which is that integrated business processes, they need to be put together and tested and manufactured together, and otherwise it blows up on the launch pad. That's not rocket science, right? So again, same idea.
The Europa rocket, which is
rocket
science. Unlike the Europa rocket, which is rocket science, of course.
That's why I used the word rocket science there, Adam.
I
I'd actually thought that one through, but hey, you can take credit if you like. Anyway, so that's another example. It's personal touch. Although I'd read the article in the Times, and it's just an article in the Times, I was able to find a personal touch by thinking, oh, well, I've got my little cards. Mom, have you still got those things in the attic? Because mothers keep everything, don't they? Yeah, I still got them. So it makes it a personal touch. So that's another example of telling a single story with a deep truth. I mean, I could go on.
James, that's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
That is, it's awesome, James.
Well, I've been working on a book, which I don't know how to, sort of provisionally titled, metaphorically speaking, the Manual for Business People to Find, Develop, and Stage Their Own Analogies. And if I could kill a few more PowerPoint slides, I'd be happy.
Fantastic. James, thank you so much for coming on. Can everybody give him up?
Fantastic. Thank you, James.
Bye, everybody. My boring corporate call now. Look at some more slides.
Spice it up. Those experiences. Spice it up.
Oh, God. All right.
Thanks, James, so much for coming on. Thanks, appreciate
James.
it.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think we should just quit while we're ahead, Tim. Just call it a day. It's not going to get any better.
Well, I was going to say, how do we feel of that?
That's the war marks been set.
Was actually probably the most compelling argument for storytelling that I have personally experienced. Like I've listened to him and I was like, of course this makes sense. So I need to be spending more time figuring out how to do this, because I'm always trying to figure out how to explain something that's complex, and most people never understand what I'm saying. So
I think there's something uniquely biological about storytelling, and I'd be fascinated by the neuroscience of why stories work, and they work on the way our brains work, and explaining things. So we've been doing it for thousands of years around campfires,
around campfires, around carrying messages from town to village. And
yeah, can I just posit a possibility? I think it's because it's relational. Instead of trying to like understand some complex thing, it's taking something that you can relate to already and explaining it in that framework, and then your mind
you can imprint yourself on it.
Yeah,
as well.
Can anchor into it. Can I tell you a nice little story about growing up in Glasgow in the 70s, and it still exists to this day.
Is this the Eric story of today?
It might be the very one. It's not funny in any way. It's just that it's a little bit touching. So, if you were to go into some of the housing estates around Glasgow, you would hear kids being sent to the shop by their mothers to get messages, and messages are groceries in Glasgow. So, if anyone's listening from Glasgow, you'll understand. And I have to resist sometimes saying I'm just nipping out to the shops for some messages. Now that goes back to the fact that back in the day there was only one telephone in certain places, so people used to phone the post office or the local grocery store and leave messages for Mrs. Hughes or Mr. Gray or whatever, and the kids would be sent to pick up those messages, and while you're there, get some potatoes and some milk. So what became, as the messages started to go away, the concept of going to get messages remained and solidified. So to this day, there are kids being sent to shops for messages where there are no messages, and it's quite funny how those that's stories and messages being shared across from people, but how that little thing was picked up and still remains to this day. So enjoy that. The next time you're going to the shops, you're off to get some messages.
That's great.
I remember that.
Thank you.
So who's going to get
what
Yep.
James was that he told two completely different stories
Yeah.
to make the same one point about SAP.
Yeah.
So one of the things that he said that he's positioned it within a sale, and then when the customers bought, they've said, "Do you know when we went to the board, we shared your story?" So he said that it's not just about telling it; it's also about the propagation of the story and the fact that people remember it and then go and tell it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That actually speaks to the point that Eric was making about how we share stories, and it's much easier to share a story that explains something than to try to communicate some complex idea about something that you really don't know very much about.
But also, if you think about the kind of how communication has evolved, I mean, a long time, relatively word printed documentation, certainly printed documentation that could be shared, came in relatively late on, and therefore, in the early stages, it was all about passing on perhaps quite complex bits of information, but in a way that was going to be memorable and people would be able to take on board. So, that predated all of the other forms of communication that have happened. So I think it's hardwired into us. And as you say, if you look at it anthropologically, sitting around the campfire, etc., we're kind of tuned in as humans to that particular way of communicating with one another.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Actually, I was just watching a documentary. I think it was when I was sick, and it was talking about hieroglyphics in cuneiform and how that first form of written word is all about pictures, and it's hard to only the elites could really understand it because you had to memorize all these different pictures, everything, because it's all these stories that are up there. It wasn't until we have the alphabet that you can really have the ability to have a democratized literacy. But the first form, right, the hieroglyphs and the cuneiform. It's stories basically.
Emojis, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Early
emojis.
Let me get this emoji.
Do the little turd one. Can I just highlight something amazing that happened earlier on? Because I was watching, for anyone who hasn't seen it, Nick Rayburn does a live at midday just before this, 2 hours before this, and he has guests on, and it's such fun. The things that they do are such fun. And something happened, which I think was just fantastic. If you don't know it yet, Brentney, you were a superstar on this show. Because he had a completely coincidentally, he had a guest on, and he asked the guest every week to choose a piece of content that they really liked that week. And this person completely coincidentally said, "I'd like to put up this content by this person," not knowing that we know Brentney, and said that it was a really great piece of content and talked about why. Fantastic.
It was the one with the, I can't remember what it was now. It's like
that strange cat dog thing.
Yeah, you plan the post and you put it out and it gets like 47 views. But I explained to Alex that you were a colleague and I knew you and you were going to be in my life. It's like a weird 6 degrees of separation thing. I think
very strange.
Yeah. The universe.
So I have a friend who does. He's a tour guide at Stonehenge. So you know Stonehenge. It's a here in the UK. It's a load of stones. So you imagine families going around, yeah. Where and
you really sold it. You really sold it.
Big up on the sell.
For those that don't know, it's on a plane and it's really windswept.
Yeah.
So it's cold. It's raining. You've got two or three kids there, and he stands up and he's got to basically do you a tour of history of these stones. So he stands up and he says, I'm going to take you around the stones, but before we do, you're going to find out 3 things. The first thing you're going to find out is about squirrels. The second thing you're going to find out about lard. And the third thing you're going to find out is about the Jack and the Beanstalk. And then he starts to talk. I always thought that was a really great way of actually galvanizing everybody in the audience as a way of going, what on earth is squirrels, lard, and Jack and the Beanstalk not to do with Stonehenge?
Yeah, very good. Very good. I like
that. Yes, of course we do.
Right.
We're hanging
throw that out there.
Right, I wasn't sure. You were like going like,
what's the lard bit?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Now we are going to Stonehenge.
Yeah.
So when Stonehenge was built, it was in those days.
Tim was just a boy.
Most of the United Kingdom was covered in trees.
Yep.
Apart from this one area where they built Stonehenge, which one of the reasons they reckon they built it was because it was a plain without any trees. Because there were so many trees, you could think about it that actually a squirrel could jump from Land's End to John O'Groats, for those that don't know, is the top end of Scotland. And a squirrel could jump all the way across the trees, all the way to the from one end of the country to the other. That's how covered in trees it was. Wow. Yeah. The other thing is that what used to happen was that, and nobody actually knows this, why, that it was actually the winter solace that was celebrated there, not the summer solace, which in the UK can be quite cold. And what they did was that somebody, and nobody knows how because there wasn't the internet or the mobile, but they motivated people, and some people walked for 6 to 8 weeks. Some people even came from Scotland to come to the Stonehenge to actually see the winter solace. And when they did that, they had feasts, and they cooked animals, and from the animal fat they made lard. This happened 4,500 years ago, which for some people is a short time, for other people it's a long time. But when they sat round the campfires eating that animal food, they told stories. And one of the stories they told is Jack and the Beanstalk. So when you tell the story, Jack and the Beanstalk, you are connecting with the people that made Stonehenge.
Well, again, this is probably a high point to finish the show on. It's not going to get much better than this. This is brilliant.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Welcome to Stories with James and Tim.
Well, you know,
completely killed all the engagement from the audience. But
is there anybody out there?
I think they're just
so. Is there
bowled over
anybody
with
out
it.
there got any good stories to tell? Please let us know.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic story.
I'm just taking a deep breath and I'm just counting and letting the.
I have one that I could share. It's a piece of content that I could share if you want.
Yes,
and it's got a story
why
behind
not,
it because
Eric?
it's a lovely story.
What a segue,
I love it.
Doyle. What a segue.
What a segue. So I have a piece of content to share that I noticed.
That does me, doesn't it?
That does you, I think.
Yeah, I like that one.
You like? Yeah, I thought you might. It's pretty good. That's fine. That's fine. The way it is okay. I'm just going to zhuzh that back to the start. So this is the profile of Chris Moon. Chris Moon, MBE. Chris used to be a former British Army officer back in the day who was, who once he completed his tenure with the British Army, he was there for quite a while. He joined a charity organisation leading troops of people into combat zones to clear mines. So it was landmine clearing. Chris took on a job to lead a team clearing landmines in Cambodia. And whilst there, now, as if his life wasn't exciting enough when he was in the British Army, while he was there, he was captured by the Khmer Rouge and had a pretty awful time. Khmer Rouge were a particularly brutal gang of... I don't know, how would you explain the Khmer Rouge?
It was a regime.
There you go, a regime. A lovely way to put it. He was captured. He was kept in captivity by them. Didn't have a particularly pleasant time. But Chris, being a master at communication, a master at negotiation, and at building relationships, talked his way out of trouble. The first Brit ever to have talked his way out and be formally released by the Khmer Rouge after a long time of brutal captivity, and he also saved the lives of 2 Cambodian colleagues as well. Later on, he then led a team of people over to Mozambique to do the same. And while he was in Mozambique, he tells the story. I was lucky enough to do an interview with Chris. There's Chris and I on the Cruxcast. Sorry, someone's trying to call me. So he was leading a troop of people trying to clear these mines in Mozambique, and the way he tells it was that say I'll get the numbers wrong, but say that they were told that there was a grid mapped out where there were 13 mines, well, they could only find 12. And he went for a little walk. He sent them all back up the safe zone, and he went for a little walk himself, going, "Where are you? Where are you?" And just heard click, and he found it. He said, "I'm rubbish at a lot of things in my life, but I'm very good at finding mines." Very good at finding
How
mines.
many times do you think in his life has he heard that click?
Well, I think he used to do demos showing what the clicks looked like with dead mines, but he actually stood on the live 13th mine or whatever number it was. He lost pretty much the right-hand side of his body. When by the time they got him to hospital in South Africa, the doctor said, "You've got the least amount of blood I've ever seen in a living human being. You should not be here." So they made an incredible video about Chris and his time in there. He's got an amazing prosthetic arm, an amazing prosthetic leg. He's actually worked with organizations to develop really advanced prosthetics for sport, because whilst being in hospital back in London, they said to him, "That's it. It's over, Chris. You are basically a life on benefits, sitting in a wheelchair looking out of a window in a home." And he said, "I don't think so." Less than a year after that, he entered the London Marathon. Now, this is a guy that's got no arm and no leg. He entered the London Marathon. He then decided that he was going to become an ultra-marathon runner and do all the most difficult races in the world. He was the first Brit to do the Marathon des Sables brother. But Chris was also, he got the title of first Brit to do the Marathon des Sables and also the first double amputee to ever do the Marathon des Sables. An amazing person who now goes around the world raising money, doing ultra marathon. He's done the Badwater Ultra. He's done all these 1,000-mile horrific things, and he now goes around teaching people and organizations about resilience and change management, right. and just dealing with adversity. And he runs talks on going beyond limitations and teaching management teams about dealing with what you perceive to be crisis, putting all that in perspective and changing your plans. So I was so affected by that because That video is available on YouTube. I'll put it in the chat after. You can actually go and watch it. It's 40 minutes long, where they got a proper acting team to go out to a very similar area to reenact what happened to Chris in Mozambique. He's a wonderful person. I'll also put the Cruxcast link in there if anybody wants to see it. And I was just so taken by it because he doesn't have a particularly huge network, but when he put this post out this week, it got 300 or 400 bits of engagement. And it was that one there. That's the actor playing him, and that's the Khmer Rouge. And I just thought I'd share that today.
Fantastic. It's a great Cruxcast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Okay. You go last from now on. All right.
I feel like we've kind of, shot our load really early.
James, Tim, Chris Moon.
Come on, man. Come on, man. We got to pace it out.
Keep it lighthearted this week. Oh, okay.
Who's going next then?
I guess we'll.
Come on, who's going next?
All right, I'll share mine.
Spinning
Mine
wheels.
It's like Wheel of Fortune. Do we just pick? Just say
Yeah,
stop?
fire.
There we go.
Sharing.
It's yours here.
Tim's got it up.
Yeah.
Tim's got
It's
it
on
up.
the screen.
Brittany.
Okay.
Who are?
Oh yeah, we don't have to share now. I missed that in the Slack. I just got Eric's instructions that were directly to me a week ago. I just got them last night on sharing screen, but
You're more than welcome.
You have a
to share your
3G
screen,
network.
Brittany.
growth. I'm like old tech in a young person's body. So this is a story from a small company you might know called Amazon, about how not to do social selling. It's apparently they hired people to do employee advocacy for them, and it was fake, and people sniffed it out right away. There's so many articles written on this one. This specific one came from Flipboard, but if you scroll down, I just want to read this like one tweet. I was laughing too much about it. This is an example of what came out. It was on Twitter. Someone said, this is the employee from Amazon. I've worked at Amazon filling orders for 2 years now. Do you think if I wasn't being paid enough that I'd still be here? Full and generous benefits package, period. Oh, and I like the people I work with. Yeah, I'm doing just fine, partner. Cowboy emoji. Like, do not do this. Do not. Like, when we say have your
It's totally believable. Totally believable, that is.
It was great. It made me laugh. There's so many articles, but the cowboy.
I just see Max Headroom going dar 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 dar, just like a robot. Yeah, brilliant.
So a little story from the social media past. There was 2 countries that decided to do this: Turkey and Venezuela. They actually decided to get into social media, and they created 2,000, pretty much each. So 2,000 followers or 2,000 Twitter accounts, which were basically pro the particular party. One of the things that was fun about them was if you followed them, they followed you back. So you could instantly get 4,000 followers just by following all these Turkish and Venezuelan accounts. Just share that.
Do you remember when
social media there?
Do you remember when Clubhouse first started? People would go into rooms that would be follow for followers. There'd just be reamed like slabs of just loads of people just sat in there just not talking, just racking up follows. Just ridiculous concept.
It's amazing how they were able to sponsor that river there, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, very good, very good. Sorry,
the river. Yeah, me too. Changed gears real quick.
Change gears. That came through my synapses like a little marshmallow being squeezed through a coin slot in a phone box.
That's storytelling right there, Donald.
It's a fantastic. I mean, it's a classic example of how people think that they can buy fakeism. They can be fake. And they suddenly think they can buy it, and no one's going to notice.
Has anyone seen this?
Obvious. Sometimes you know, just by not encouraging your employees to have their own personal brand and be themselves, they don't know what to share and what to post. And so they'll just repurpose the company content, and it's a miss every time. It doesn't resonate, and people see right through it. So,
well, the other thing that you got to remember is that what you actually do is that because no one engages with it, you train the LinkedIn algorithm to ignore you. So all these people that have implemented employee advocacy are basically are training the algorithm basically to ignore them. I mean, it's a bizarre thing to do.
Has anyone been hit by this thing that's happened? Yeah.
Guess probably don't know they're doing it.
Has anyone been hit by this thing that's going around on LinkedIn just now, where it says it's a male person, but he just hits particular bits of content and posts just random gibberish like chicken bell factory shoe laces and a picture of
that was me. Sorry.
Something to do. This is just like a normal day in the content world for you, right? But then he posts a picture of something to do with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Have you seen this guy?
I had it on, I think, a burrito. Because you pointed it out to me.
It's a Coca-Cola thing, usually. It's the ones that I get. It's always Coca-Cola. Someone employed at Coca-Cola advertising watches. It's bizarre.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's a really weird. Yeah, it's horrible.
I can go next since Michael Arena, the post that I'm sharing, he's a VP of Talent Development at Amazon Web Services. So it's a segue from Amazon to Amazon.
It's as if it was planned.
As if it was planned. Exactly. Seamless. Now this is really, really, well, to me, it's really, really interesting. I don't know if you'll find it interesting. This is
we'll decide.
This is a post-pandemic map of a 700-person engineering firm. Okay, and what this is showing is something that Michael calls the neighborhood effect. And the before picture is, these dots really kind of closely connected people this represents people, okay? People in the organization. And pre-pandemic, the relationships showed what you call bonding, which is actually these colors together. That shows that the people within the group are very close. They're communicating well and speaks to good execution. But it also shows something called bridging social connection, which is greens in the purple, blues in the greens, right? Connections across groups, right? And what for social network influence, you want to have both of those things, both the bonding and the bridging. So what this is showing is that as the pandemic has dragged on, the bridging connections have started to come apart. And so now, instead of organizations looking like tightly interwoven groups of people working together, they look like these neighborhoods where I won't use, the different people on the relay team are in different groups. So I think it's absolutely fascinating. And there's a lot of study going on in, among high performing, some of the most innovative organizations in the world are using what this is called organizational network analysis to understand the relationships between people, whether they're on teams or across organizations. And it speaks to what Michael says is sort of the, I won't call it decline of what we call human capital, but the rise of social capital and the importance of social capital. So human capital is about skills and what that kind of stuff. Social capital is how you leverage your social connections to share what you know and the skills that you have. Really interesting stuff. Yeah.
Adam, you've got a qualification on this, haven't you?
I have some time ago. Yes. I think things have changed since then. you can go. There's a tool. I forget what the tool's called that goes and collates all of these interactions, and then allows you to create this map of influence and see who's connected to who else. And
I'm sure Alistair in the comments can probably point us towards something.
I'm sure he
similar
probably
to that.
can actually.
Oh yeah, you know what? I ought to connect with him on this.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you talk about social capital, because I think that in the future what we'll see is people that are good connectors, bridges, as Michael calls them, will be the people that are increasingly valuable. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. You know, your ability to connect my network to your network. The person that stands at the intersection of those is the person that's got enormous value, because they create those connections and those bridges between the different factions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that I agree with that 110%. I think Michael would agree with that as well. I think he says as much in this article. And what's really interesting is how talent organizations are starting to use this type of technology to identify those people. And what I would say is you want to identify who those people are today, and also use some sort of enablement to figure out who could be good at this in the future, right? And then once you do that, then you can direct resources to helping those people be better at the thing that they're already doing sort of naturally.
I always like to use the analogy of the old-fashioned telephone operator, you know, and I think it's especially if you work in the kind of corporate center that, you know, through your connections, if you know someone's got a problem here and someone's got a potential solution there, it's bringing the two together and connecting them.
This, you know, one of the things that Michael is saying in the article is that this is a real problem for creativity and innovation.
Yeah.
Because it's it's different perspectives. Well, I think different perspectives, whether they're in the organization or out of the organization. So, you know, your social internal plus your social external, right? That combines your ability to be innovative and creative. So this organizations and like I said, you know, the Microsofts, the Amazons, they're looking at this right now and looking for solutions to this problem.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Apple, with their new donut-shaped headquarters, I read an article that said the bathrooms are very cleverly positioned, which means that everybody has to walk quite a long way to get to the bathroom. So they walk past other people's desks deliberately because they want to encourage that, oh, hello, I've not seen you for ages, Lember. Do you want to go and grab a coffee? That, rather than you just being able to sneak to the bathroom and sneak back to your desk again.
So
and not
they want you to encourage that sort of like desperate for a pee conversation.
Yeah. I'd like to go for a coffee, but I can't right now.
I can't.
My bladder is full.
My bladder is full, or worse.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom, for that suggestion. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, that's a great, yeah, get plugged into that. I also did a Tim talk with a guy who in Denmark, and I'm going to put it in the chat. He runs a company where they actually do questionnaires, and what they do is that they map out the network and they can find particular change makers within the organization. So if as a business, what you're trying to do is affect change, usually what you do is you go to the top or you go to certain people because you think they are the people that will be able to provide the change. But you'll actually find that there are certain people hidden away in pockets in the organization that will be the people that will go, go on, everybody, this is the way to go. And then everybody will follow.
Do you mean change makers, Tim?
Sorry?
Do you mean change makers?
Yes.
I know someone that had that in the title of a book.
Yeah, no.
It's really awesome, and you know, it speaks to, you know, one of the things that we talk about all the time, which is that the command and control way of running an organization that is dying and dying rapidly, because people are recognizing that the influence in the organization is really not at the top, even though they can lead and inspire and do those kinds of things. What you really need to do is find those people who are influencers in the network. You got to look at the network of the organization. That's how things are really happening. And it's one of the reasons why when you look at digital transformation initiatives, you can see a top-down led transformation die, because the resistance to change in the network, when you don't know who your allies and your detractors are, they're out there destroying the initiative through the network, and you have no idea what's going on. So it really interesting stuff. Love it.
Nick, you're next.
That's awesome.
I'm just looking at Doyle spamming the comment section with all these propaganda.
Propaganda.
He looks like looks like an Eastern European Stasi.
Yeah, Eric from the Politburo is slipping there. And...
He looks like Lenin, doesn't he?
Do you have peppers?
Yes, well,
the pigeons fly high over Stalingrad.
We are the resistance. You are Red Fox.
My post is from a lady called I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Leda Reynolds, and it's about how she always wanted to be a journalist. Anyone who knows me knows I've got a bit of an anarchic kind of punk streak in me, and if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, we found that out in the last year, haven't we?
Yeah. And Leda has kind of got a bit of that fighting spirit in her as well. This post is beautiful in that she kind of grew up on a council estate. She went through a lot of trauma as a child, and she basically, her teacher said to her, you're never going to become a journalist because of your background. And she did, and completely proved her wrong. And you can see the pure amount of engagement on that post. It's the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of perfect example of the kind of content that works really well on LinkedIn. It's just a really human, beautiful post, just full of raw emotion, and it's lovely to read and heartwarming as well.
Yeah, it's lovely. I was told. I put a comment. I was told at school never to take a job where you had to write.
How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I ignored it.
Guys, this is really amazing, and it actually speaks to a speaks to a biblical truth. Actually, there's actually something in the Bible about how the people closest to you cannot see how impactful or how much influence you will have. And it talks about how Jesus, the people from his town, they couldn't see what he could do, so he was not able to do miracles in the town that he was from, because they were just like, oh, it's just the carpenter's son. So I think there are so many people. Actually, my best friend from college, who knew me very well in the early 90s, when we were first finding out about the internet, I was saying, oh man, this is amazing. One day people are going to buy everything on the internet. And he just laughed at me like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I was like, no, we should start a business. Business is going to be huge. Of course, that Amazon, it turned out to do that. But, I kind of throw that in his face every once in a while. You remember when you were telling me like this would never happen? So anyway, it's a universal truth.
Basically what you're saying, Lenwood, is that you just compared yourself to Jesus.
I'm using storytelling in the I'm comparing everyone to Jesus. I'm saying, to anyone who wants to do anything, the people closest to you won't see your greatness. So forget about what they have to say.
Yeah.
I love the Carpenters. I don't know about you. Rob.
Yeah, good post.
So the post I shared this week is from Chris Walker. Chris Walker is a great follow for Marketing Insights. In this post, he lays out a completely plausible 25-step journey from a LinkedIn post to a product purchase.
Oh, yeah, it's brilliant.
Yet not one of these steps was generated through an automated solution, nor were any of the activities captured or counted by attribution models. So revenue happened. We just have no idea how. As Chris says, welcome to the dark social era. My take on that, marketing and sales rely so much on automation and attribution, but give no credit, that is, attribute any ROI to social. And why is that? Probably because tracking is messy at best, and if not downright impossible. And in the spirit of that which gets measured gets done, if you cannot automatically track and measure revenue from your social efforts, then social must not be driving revenue, right? And if it's not driving revenue, why do it?
I think it's good following Chris on LinkedIn. It's even better following Chris on TikTok. His TikTok material is first class. First class. I don't know if he's actually. He seems to be in a podcast studio. I think he might just. It's as if he's talking across the table to someone, but I think he might just be on his own. It doesn't matter. It is absolute gold dust. He put out a piece last night, which just gripped me. He was like, "We've got this modern phenomenon," he said, which I just see repeated and repeated across businesses, where they've maybe got 6 to 15 of a sales team, and they convince the leadership team that they need to hire a marketing person to assist them to do what they do. And he says, and this is just like the self-fulfilling prophecy. They hire the marketing person to come in to help them generate leads, and the marketing person ends up making brochures and business cards. And he's mapping this out, and I'm sitting there just thinking back to all the different offices that I sat in and saw this play out, this model play out. And it's playing out more and more and more today. And he says, and it gets right up to the point where we don't meet our next Series B investment because we never hit the numbers. But then someone turns around and says, but what about that marketing person we got? And they get rid of the marketing person and 3 of their sales team and replace them. And he said, and this just bumbles along like a broken wheel and just continues on. And no one's addressing. Everyone firefights the bit that's visible. We need marketing. We need more leads. No one's addressing the root cause of the problem. No one's investigating the true cause of the issue, and just continually fighting a little fire.
How phenomenally broken it is.
Oh man! But a great post and a great chap to follow on multiple platforms. He speaks so much sense.
Will, I know that you've got to get off, but you've got time for this.
Yeah, no, I've got time for this. So my piece is taken from a guy who I met. He was actually one of the lecturers on the coaching course I did. So I think he's a psychologist as well, Ted. And he does his own, not exactly TED Talks, but he's really great at bringing some kind of coaching topics, psychologist topics, and doing a short kind of video explanation. So this was something that was posted yesterday, and he's talking really about anxiety, and he's using a kind of coaching tool which is called the inner cast of characters. So the way that this tool works is, we all have these kind of voices or elements that kind of sometimes pop up and question. So they may be things which are more negative, such as anxiety or worries or something like that, or there could be something very positive. And what Ted does here is he's specifically talking about anxieties, and he's talking about the way that he kind of imagines dealing with anxieties in his own mind, and he kind of characterizes them. So if you watch the video, he'll talk about, he thinks about when he's anxious, and he thinks about when he was a teenager going around in a hoodie, and he'll draw a little sketch of that. And then he'll talk about, well, if I'm then thinking about how I can deal with this anxiety, there's another character who comes out who's almost like a kind of professor who's like, don't be so stupid, what are you worried about? And he said, there's a character in the middle, which is actually him in the early days as a father. And, if you see somebody who's, suffering from anxiety, especially a young child or whatever, then you're going to go over and kind of support them. And he uses it at the start because he talks about, sometimes you feel anxious about doing a video. And I know that, a lot of people, when they start posting videos on LinkedIn, they have that anxiety. So I just thought it was a kind of nice way to kind of summarize different elements of what I'm involved in, And Ted's a really nice guy, so I highly recommend you connecting with him and follow other videos that he puts out.
Superb.
Tim, have you all the links to the post for these? Have you collated these in the?
Yes, they're all in the chat.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah, even yours, Nick.
Even mine.
Yeah, I didn't sort of like sit here and go, I won't put Nick's in.
Tempting though, eh? Tempting.
Yeah, could be tempting.
So back to this. It's a great 5 minutes. Which is quite a long time for a video, but in terms of that, we have this person that says don't do it because it's really scary, and then this person says that don't be so stupid. But actually, both of those voices in your head aren't helpful,
right?
Because even the person that says don't be so stupid, in a way, is it's just not a helpful conversation. And so what happens is you have this
conversation in a way
goes on between these, and they're both kind of arguing with each other, and it's about having this piece of reason in your head that you can control.
Aren't we neurologically hardwired to yes. We have like a negativity bias inside us that kind of always focuses on the bad outcomes of stuff and things that I guess
some people do, Nick. I think some people actually probably either don't have it or really don't pay a lot of attention to it because they always think
I think as a species it's to a certain extent I think it's hardwired into us, but yeah.
Can we just ask who is for some reason someone's coming through as LinkedIn user?
Yeah, and it's paired as well, so
yeah, so if you're listening, can you just drop us a note to let us know who you are? Because sometimes if you're on a phone or something, it comes through as LinkedIn user. We'd love to know who you are.
If you just put your name in.
Yeah, just say, I am such and such, and we'll...
I am.
I'm hoping it's one of the people that we've highlighted in one of these posts. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool.
Yeah, that would Jesus.
Be cool. Jeff Bezos.
That would be something.
So let's just
hang on. Miracle,
he's back and he's on LinkedIn.
Let's just try and do something. Let's just try and do something unique on LinkedIn, and we'll just stay completely silent, awkwardly silent until LinkedIn user tell us who you are.
It looks like that they're leaving anyway, and they were saying bye. So we might struggle to get that. And talking about goodbyes, I'm really sorry, ladies.
Cheers, Will.
I've got to head off. Have a great weekend. All right, take care.
Okay.
Bye. See you later. Ta-ta.
So, Sophie.
Yes. Well, as all of you know, and potentially many of the people viewing know, Sophie is a client of ours. And I had a conversation with her today, actually, on Messenger after this post. And she said she was just really tired, but she didn't want to post, I'm just really tired. So she posted something upbeat about how she's loving her new job. And I think what's interesting is that she is somebody that she was already quite social, but she went through the training program, and in the social world, she's an incredibly high flyer, an absolute rock star. She posts great content, a great variation of content, gets loads of engagement on the content. Some of the content is work-based and skills-based. A lot of it is personal stuff. Here's my journey. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I've discovered. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I like. And it makes people feel that they know her. And her influence is spreading significantly throughout her organization and outside of her organization, where people have contacted her and said, this is magical. What are you doing? Can you show us how to do this, please? But she's recently changed jobs as a direct result of this behavior. Somebody internally at the company she works for. And I love the fact that it's a true success story. The idea of being yourself and the feeling of empowerment that gives you, and the feeling of love that it creates in the people around you. So they all think, here's somebody I want to spend time with, yields very tangible results, often quite quickly. And I think Sophie is living proof of that. So anyone watching who isn't connected to Sophie Kramhoft should do so, because her posts are great and she's lovely. And that was it, really.
I love Sophie's posts.
Yeah, she's got such a way about her. She's like many people that we're seeing now, there's a split happening where there are professionals who are getting this and finding their voice, finding their lane, and finding that you can tell it's when I actually connected to Sophie and noticed that you were working with her. I connected and said, "Hi, I'm Eric. It's been lovely to connect with you. I've been noticing your journey." And she said, "What do you mean, my journey?" I said, "Well, we look at this kind of thing all the time, and it catches our eye when we find someone who just has taken a breath and opened their shoulders, and the shoulders drop, and you see that they become. It's like, I know it's a really rubbish metaphor, but using James's from the start, when Keanu Reeves puts his hand behind his back and holds up and starts just dodging all the punches, just while he's looking away." And you start in the Matrix, and it's just like, oh, this person is now they're breathing a different oxygen. They are so relaxed in their zone that actually all that tension, that corporate tension that existed before, is gone, and they are quite zen. There you go, Zen Social.
Mm. Yeah, I
heard it here first. Get the copyright.
Yeah.
Get the copyright.
Zen Social. That's a great name for a company, Zen Social.
And our headline's just going to be Nam Yoho Renge Kyo. That's it.
What's that? That means chicken and rice.
We're almost over. We still have Nick's, right?
No,
I've done mine.
Nope.
I've done
yeah,
mine.
it's just so memorable. Thanks, Leonard. Thanks.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Cheers. Yeah.
I didn't have you, Leonard.
But I was actually just going to say, it just really speaks to what I was talking about, that Michael Arena was saying, that how this social capital is increasing in importance. And we know from, basically someone who is, VP of talent at one of the, most innovative companies in the world is saying, we're looking at this. Other companies are looking at this, and even more, because we're kind of like way out in the front, only a handful of companies really doing it. But
I saw a really interesting post yesterday about how there's a company that somebody set up where they're investing in future YouTubers shares, basically. So an influencer that's starting, you can invest in them, and then further down the line recoup your investment on that. I wonder if that's something potentially companies end up doing with them employees and with their social.
Well, I think that the way you do that is just by investing in those people and helping those people to grow in every way, shape, or form. Don't try to take it over, but just align yourself with them by investing in them. Like, it's important to help people grow to become better people, not just, better. If the better person you are, the better you'll be at. So, I mean, I won't say that's universally true, but what I'm saying is when you're authentic, or when you're confident enough to be authentic, when you develop your skills, it comes through. Inauthenticity, it's so obvious, like the Amazon thing that Brittany was sharing, So anyway.
I think I'm going to start rocking a Samuel L. I feel this might be my new look.
It's very you, Eric.
Yeah. This hat is completely synthetic, and the top of my head is really starting to sweat now. So I'm going to remove mine.
But baby, it ain't over till it's over.
Oh, I thought you had a full head of hair.
Oh, there we go. That's better.
That was a bit of a shock.
Oh, it's still in there.
So I think we're actually slightly over time, but thank you everybody for all your content. I thought that was excellent, wonderful. I hadn't realised that there was.
Is that the new
DJ
outro
Eric.
music?
Is there music?
Kravitz. Some Kravitz.
Is that Kravitz?
It's Kravitz.
Nick likes a bit of Lenny Kravitz.
I like it.
What, is that you that's playing that, Adam?
No.
It's somebody was playing some Kravitz.
All right, that's because Lenny Kravitz is on a later show that
it's Eric. He's got his cassette recorder there on his lap, and he presses the tape button.
He's going to go. He's going to flip into some break dancing in a moment. I think.
Very much so. Very much so.
So we're all going to go our way right now.
What a lovely show.
And thank you everybody for tuning in. See you next week.
It was a joy.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.